Hi guys, it's Carrie and I've missed you. I took a week off, but while I was gone, we hit and surpassed 50K subscribers, which I can't believe and I'm so grateful. So thank you so much if you were a part of that 50K. If you aren't, still, thanks for watching. Yeah, how fun. That was great. It is a very chilly, rainy, dreary day here in Seoul, so the lighting, spent a lot of time working on it, doesn't work. We've moved my lamp. Actually, let me turn off the... Is that better? What do you think? I'm gonna keep it off, I think. Anyway, just thank you so much for making this channel so fun. It's my favorite thing. I love it so much. So anyway, for today, not doing anything special. I didn't have time to prepare. We're just gonna talk about what I read in January, and it was a fantastic month. So we're just gonna jump right in. We are starting off with Fable by Adrienne Young, and what a good way to start the year. This was just a really short, lovely little story, and it wasn't at all what I expected. So by the title, Fable, I went into this assuming that it was going to be kind of about fairy tales or like old stories, old fables. Not the case. Fable is actually our main character, and we learned that she has been abandoned on this island where she has to basically dive and find precious rock and stuff to sell, and that's the only way that she can support herself. And her goal is to save enough money that she gets off of this island and goes to find this person. And I don't want to ruin it because we kind of learn along with her a lot of details, but the story is much more about like pirates. They aren't technically pirates, but they're like people on boats that do questionable things. And the only issue I had with it, which isn't really an issue, is that it felt like an introduction to this story that I'm really excited to hear about. I wish that it delved a lot deeper into some of the characters because we learn a lot about Fable, but there are other characters that they're still a real mystery to me. I really want to get to know them. I just want to know their story and hear them speak more. It was wonderful and lovely and it drew me in, but it was more like, instead of, wow, I really love this story and I can't wait to see it continue, it was like, wow, this was a great introduction to this story. I'm excited for it to fully start. Even though there was action, I'm not explaining it well, but basically it was a great introduction to a hopefully series. I know that there's at least a sequel. So yeah, if you're interested definitely in more of like a pirate, boaty kind of aesthetic, Fable was excellent. And yeah, it just stressed me out a little bit because there are a lot of scenes underwater because she can hold her breath for really long, and I felt like I was holding my breath when I was reading it. So it was a little stressful, but overall, a great first read of 2021.
Editing Carrie here. I actually saw Fable on the shelf of a guy who makes like anti-racism videos.
You are not the victim, and you are not marginalized.
So if you weren't kind of on the fence about it, maybe that'll tip you over the edge. So yeah, Fable.
Next up is Sia Martinez and the Moonlight Beginning of Everything by Raquel, Vasquez, Gilliland. And this is a difficult book for me to talk about. The very beginning of this book reads much like a classic kind of YA contemporary. We have Sia, who we learn a lot about. The author really goes in depth, kind of explaining Sia, which I really appreciated. I felt like I really understood this character. She is dealing with the loss of her mother because the sheriff of their town reported her mother to ICE and had her deported back to Mexico, and against their family's wishes, her mother tried to come back and cross the desert and was never heard from again, so they're assuming that she died, which so many people do. So many people die before they even can cross the border because that area is just desert. So it's very rooted in reality. It's very sad. She has to deal with going to school with the son of the sheriff that essentially murdered her mom. She has her one close friend, but there's kind of some friendship problems going on. There's a cute boy that moves into town. She also, content warning, and I thought that this was so well done. The way that it was done, I appreciated it. She does talk about sexual assault. Before the book begins, she experienced sexual assault, and it plays into her relationships with the people around her. I just thought for the age group that it's aiming towards, I thought it was really well done, and yeah, I thought it was wonderfully handled. The second half of the book, however, is the part that's difficult for me to talk about because I don't. So in the beginning of the book, Sia and her best friend are out and about, and they happen to see lights fly through the sky. And they're like, wow, that's weird. That looks like a UFO. And then the story just goes on. We never hear about that again. But about halfway through the book, we see the lights again, and a lot more people see the lights. So Sia and the new boy in town, who are the people who saw it, they start talking to this like really funny UFO conspiracy theorist and stuff like that. So this really takes a turn towards science fiction, which I heard some people didn't like. Like, you either like it or you don't. That this went from a just contemporary kind of young adult romance to sci-fi. I was confused, but I was, you know, down for the ride. After they are talking with these people, they see the UFO again. Except it crashes, and something comes out. I can't go into it without spoiling it, but I do want to give a content warning because this is why it's so difficult to talk about this book, is because part of me wants to be like, wow, this was such a fun kind of like alien UFO story, like wow, sci-fi, great. But like sci-fi often is, it is so strongly tied to current events and things that are happening in our reality. It does definitely touch on the inhumane treatment of immigrants, migrants, on the US-Mexico border. It also talks about the experimentation and medical procedures performed on these people without their knowledge and without their consent, which is something that we've seen in the news. It's something that's happening. There was a part of me that was like, you know, alien experiments. We've been on this ride before, but the way that she wrote it, it was so strongly tied back to that current issue that it just made it so much more powerful and very difficult to read. And I need to read the sequel because I just need to know. It's hard to talk about because the second half, I didn't enjoy a lot of the characters that were introduced, but I thought that the message and like the content that it was talking about was so important, to the point where I finished the book and I signed up for a bunch of classes online about immigrant and refugee law. Like, it impacted me strongly. So I think it was super interesting, but like buckle up for a kind of rocky read. Again, super interested in the sequel. I will update you when I read it. But yeah, that was Sia Martinez and the Moonlit Beginning of Everything. Next up, I read this book thanks to Christy Ann Jones. If you do not follow her already, her channel is a wonderful, beautiful place. I believe this was on her list of top favorite books of 2020, and I trust her. So I read Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukegawa. When you Google this, he has two different names. So we're just gonna call him the one that's on the cover of the book. So Durian Sukegawa. And it's a very short story, kind of feel-goody, kind of heart-wrenching. So if you aren't ready to cry, maybe don't read this book. But it follows one man who has lived a pretty tough life. So he's kind of, I believe he's been in and out of prison. And so the main thing that he does in his life, the only job he could really get, was at a dorayaki stand. And so it's basically a little Japanese treat. It's like a pancake and then a little bit of sweet bean paste and then another pancake. Delicious. And so he just pretty much works there, does the bare minimum, you know, he buys the pre-made paste. And because of that, the store isn't super popular, but they're, you know, getting by. He does his thing, whatever. And one day this very old woman approaches the stand and she's like, I see there's a help wanted sign. I'm help. She basically just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back until this man is like, fine, fine, you can work with us. We know from the very first time he sees her, she has some kind of disability. We learn about it later, but her hands are kind of deformed. So he's worried that maybe she can't do heavy lifting, maybe she can't do the cooking, like he needs help. But he talks about how he's worried about how other people would see her, and he doesn't want people to look at her, and she has to kind of stay in the back and stuff like that. He's not a mean person. He's just literally like, I think people will be freaked out. If you do look at it from a Japanese perspective, people with disabilities, they are very kind of hidden away still in society. She teaches him how to make sweet bean paste, and slowly but surely kind of starts to change his outlook on life. Everything starts to be successful, but we learn more about her and her past and why her hands are deformed and stuff like that. And that's when the story just gets heart-wrenching. I just thought it was a good read, and definitely don't read it if you don't want to shed a few tears. Also, it made me crave red bean paste, so there's that to think about too. After that, I read A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I know that I mentioned both of her books in my least favorite books of 2020, but I always say I always give her another chance because I do like her writing style, and I'm pretty glad that I gave her another chance. So A Deadly Education is actually super cool. Like, the world that she created is really cool. It takes place in the normal world, but there are people who have magic. But the only problem is that there are these kind of monsters that when they can sense magic, like basically magical puberty, like when they smell a magician coming into their own when it comes to magic, they will attack them. And so most magic people don't live to become adults, which is a problem for many reasons, but also that the magic is dying out. So in order to fix this issue, they created a school called the Scolamants. It's that in and of itself is actually a mythical thing. Like, it's Naomi Novik didn't create that word, but this is her version of it, and I think it's super cool. It's basically a school that is set out into this just void. It's like floating in empty space, and the school is like almost like a clock is how I imagined it. It's on these kind of rotating gears. It's a mechanical building that shifts, and it basically moves you around, keeping you safe away from the monsters, allegedly, until you get old enough to come out and you're strong enough to fight them. And when you graduate, like, you have to fight your way through all these monsters, and then you are free to live in the world. That was a weird way to describe it, but that's how it works. And so we follow this one girl, Elle, who, for a ton of different reasons, doesn't have a whole lot of friends. People don't like her, people avoid her, and it's mostly because her affiliation, that's not the word I'm looking for. The magic that she is drawn towards, her strong suit, is world destruction. So whenever she's like, man, I really want to light a candle in my room, and she tries to summon up the spell, she actually summons up the spell to like set fire to the whole world, kind of thing. That's her deal. There aren't any teachers or anything in this school. They're basically just like teaching themselves and then trying to not get killed. Like, their food is always poisonous. They have to lock their doors like crazy. There's other students will kill you. Like, it's a bad place to be, but it's also the only place that they're allegedly safe. So yeah, we basically follow her as she tries to survive, which is not easy when you're alone. You kind of want to be in a group. But then one of the kind of most popular boys starts following her because he thinks that she killed somebody, like a person he knew, and he just wants to keep an eye on her, like make sure. But they end up having this weird sort of friendship, this kind of teamwork thing going on, and yeah, some stuff happens. I'm not gonna go too far into it. The issues that I had, number one, the school system, super cool. The magic system, okay. The magic system, a little bit confusing. They talk about there's multiple different kinds of magic, and the magic can kind of poison you if you use an incorrect version of it, but it also is really powerful. So I don't know. It was just just a tiny bit confusing. It's a major part of the plot. So for me, kind of not getting it, like kind of just like when you're in class and you don't really understand what's going on, but you're like, okay, you know, I'm just gonna keep following along and maybe it'll all click. That's where I was throughout the whole book. And another thing, which I completely understand why this happened, it's told through Elle's point of view. She's speaking directly to us, and we don't hear a lot from the other characters because she doesn't interact with a whole lot of people because she is such like this loner character. I really enjoy dialogue and I really like relationship building and learning about other characters. There's like two that I would say I kind of get them, but everybody else I was like, I don't, you know, I want to know more about you. I wish you interacted more. But that is part of the plot. So I'm hoping that in the sequel, now that she's kind of formed some kind of camaraderie with some people, I'm excited to learn more about other characters. But overall, I thought it was a super cool world. It wasn't my absolute favorite fantasy because again, I was just a little, you know, I was a little lost. But I am very excited for this series to continue. So that is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. Next up is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennet. I finally read it. Here's the thing about this book. I got it out from the library probably a few months ago, and I read, I think, the first page, and I wasn't into it. Like I couldn't, whether I just didn't have enough time, whatever it was, I was like, you know, I'll put this aside for another time. And picking it up this time, I don't know how I did it because I was so drawn in. And I read it, I think it took me about 3 days. It wasn't something that I could finish in one day. But I ate it up. So this is The Vanishing Half. We start off in this very teeny tiny town in Louisiana called Mallard, like the ducks. And there are twins that live there named Desiree and Stella. And the thing that's weird about this town is that it's technically, and I'm gonna be kind of using the words that they use, it's technically all of the people there are quote unquote colored. They are not considered white people. But because of whatever their background is, most of these people look very pale. They could be white passing. And the fact that it's technically like a, as I said, quote unquote colored community, the people living around them don't really like that. Like it's just an uncomfortable thing. They're like, we want to put you in a little racial box, but you don't really fit in the box, so we don't really like you. It's kind of weird. So the town is really confined. Like the town, everybody is really close. People don't really leave the town. Like you are born there, you live there, you die there kind of thing. And Desiree and Stella are no different. They are twins living their lives in Mallard. But while they're in high school, their mom needs some help financially, so she asks the girls to leave high school and instead come and help her clean houses in the like rich white neighborhoods. So they do, and they are not happy. And Desiree is the like really wild dreamer, kind of space case, really jittery, adventurous twin, and Stella is much more quiet and calm and logical, that twin. So they balance each other out, but they don't separate. They're like, if I go somewhere, you go somewhere, just so you know. And Desiree just suddenly decides, I'm leaving. She's like, I'm gonna go, I'm leaving, I'm going to New Orleans. And Stella's like, well, I'm coming with you. So they leave and they start this life in New Orleans. And I don't want to spoil it, but the novel does kind of do a bunch of time jumps, which I actually really liked. I loved how we learned about the story. So this isn't a spoiler, but Stella actually just kind of disappears. She realizes that she is very white passing. Strangers who don't know anything about her would assume that she's white. So she decides that's what she wants to do. She wants to live this other life, people thinking that she's a white woman, and she does her thing. Desiree, on the other hand, leads a very different life and ends up actually coming back to the town that she left. And the story that unfolds is so complex, so it's hard to explain, but so beautiful, and I loved every single character. Heartbreaking, and it talks about so many different things, but I just, yeah, I'm not gonna explain it well, but I did really enjoy it. There's Desiree who's looking for Stella. There's her daughter who grows up and finally leaves Mallard and is living her life in Los Angeles, and she meets this wonderful group of people. And then it's also about Stella and her life as a white woman, kind of undercover, her fear her past being discovered, and then how that affects her child and her life. And it's just, I really, really loved it. It was really beautiful. I don't know how to classify the genre. Just an absolutely beautiful read, and I highly recommend it. The Vanishing Half. And last but not least, oh my gosh, I ate this series up. It's the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. Once again, I've heard about this book, but it was Christiane Jones who inspired me to actually read it. I really liked it. I would say for people who are into, not necessarily A Court of Thorns and Roses, it felt very familiar, but it also felt rather fresh, which I liked. Maybe even if you're into the Shadowhunter kind of world, I would say, actually, that's a very good comparison. But anyway, we follow a girl named Cari who is a little strange. She's like, what, 17, 18, and she is covered in tattoos. Her hair is bright blue, naturally, allegedly. And she is a wonderful artist. She's an art student living in Prague. Her life seems relatively just strange already in the sense that of how she looks, but we find that it's a lot weirder because she actually is the kind of adopted daughter, I suppose, of this demon, I guess you would call him, named Brimstone. And Brimstone is, well, that might be a spoiler. So Brimstone basically has her run a bunch of different errands, mainly to collect teeth, because whatever weird dark magic he does involves teeth. And so in between classes, basically, she like goes to art school and then she gets summoned and has to go into this other dimension and go fetch teeth for Brimstone. So it's just a very strange kind of fairy tale feeling. But while she is on a certain mission, running a little errand, she happens to see this drop dead gorgeous guy, which kind of got on my nerves, the amount of times that they talked about how beautiful he was. This person is actually on the opposing side. Whatever side Brimstone is on, he's the opposite. And he is basically working with a couple people to try and close all of those portals. So Cari has to go through a door in order to meet Brimstone in this other dimension. And all of these people are like burning the doors. And Cari's worst fear is knocking on the door and not having them answer. So I'm just gonna leave you with that. I just thought it was a good fantasy. I, more than anything else, loved Susanna and Mick, her best friend and her best friend's boyfriend. Excellent characters. The entire storyline, I was waiting for Mick to be like, this is too weird, Susanna, I'm out. But he was there for it the whole time. And that's not a spoiler because Mick is my man and he would never leave Susanna. So anyway, it was just a fun time. It was a good fantasy. There's like multiple different dimensions. You're traveling all over the world. I thought the ending bit kind of fizzled for me. The end, I kind of just wanted them to be like, we're done, you know? Whoever wins, wins. But it kind of was like it ended and then there was a little bit more work they had to do. And I was kind of like, I didn't really care about the work that they had to do. I just wanted everyone to like rest, you know? I was tired for them. It wasn't my absolute favorite young adult fantasy that I've ever read, but I thought it was fantastic. So yeah, Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, excellent. And I'm currently reading The Memory Police, and it's kind of giving me adult The Giver vibes, you know? I'm digging it. I'm really digging it because I loved The Giver by Lois Lowry. Loved it. So this one I'm digging as well, and I'm excited to learn more about what the hell's going on. So yeah, that is what I read. I hope that you guys have had a good start to your year as well when it comes to reading. And what else is on my list? Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got a lot of good books to read. I just don't have the time. I'm gonna leave you here. I hope that you found something to hopefully put on hold or go out and buy. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. I'm strongly considering doing that like Cassandra Clare beach scene video, so let me know if you're still interested in that. I gotta like hype myself up and be brave to make it. But anyway, I will see you guys next time no matter what I talk about. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, wonderful month. See you next time. Bye.